A shadow cut across the steel deck, and every pair of eyes snapped toward the man who stepped out of the helicopter, broad-shouldered, calm, carrying a worn duffel with a tiny pink ribbon tied to the zipper. No one spoke, though everyone knew who he was: Iron Ghost, the legend who disappeared from the Navy SEALs without a goodbye, and the ghost who had just been summoned back by the one person who once mocked him loud enough for the entire Pacific Fleet to hear, Admiral Lena Rourke. The story begins here. She didn't recognize him at first, but he recognized her instantly, and as her eyes widened, slowly, painfully, everyone else realized something none of them expected: the woman who feared nothing, froze. Chapter 1. The heat on the naval operations deck shimmered as Admiral Lena Rourke strode toward the assembled SEAL team, her boots striking the metal like a dare. She had built her reputation on precision, discipline, and never letting emotion bleed into her voice. At 38, she was the youngest female admiral the SEALs ever had, and the one whose word could slice a career apart, but today, she was irritated. A special request operative was being assigned to her command for an operation too classified to print on paper. A last-minute insertion. Someone the higher-ups trusted more than her own decorated team. She hated that. "What's this operative's call sign again?" she asked her second-in-command without looking at him. Iron Ghost, ma'am." She snorted, loud enough for nearby officers to hear. "Iron Ghost? Sounds like a Halloween costume worn by a divorced accountant." There were several stifled coughs. A few smothered grins. Lena's voice hardened. "I don't care what spooky nickname he earned. If he thinks he can come in here and take control, he has another." The helicopter thundered in, blasting wind across the deck. Lena's words died on her tongue. The man who stepped out moved with a quiet intensity, his presence so controlled it felt like the air shifted around him. His jaw was dusted with rough stubble, his dark hair shorter than she remembered. But it was his eyes, steady, deep, unreadable, that made her breath hitch, because she did remember those eyes. She remembered every detail she had tried for years to forget. "Admiral Rourke," he said with a respectful nod, though something flickered behind his voice. "Commander Hale," she forced out, but no, he wasn't Commander Hale anymore. He was Iron Ghost, the SEAL who vanished the night his entire platoon was ambushed, only to reappear months later with wounds no one could explain and trauma he never spoke about. After that, he retired, refusing medals, refusing interviews, vanishing from military life, from friendships, from her. Lena cleared her throat, trying to regain control of her thoughts. You brought a ribbon?" He glanced at the little pink bow tied on his bag. "It's my daughter's," he said simply. "She put it there to keep me safe." A ripple of surprise spread through the crew. Even Lena blinked. "You're a single dad now?" she asked before she could stop herself. His jaw worked for a moment. 3 years. She felt her chest tighten. She almost asked a question she knew was too personal, but he cut in first. "We should talk about the operation," he said, professional but unmistakably distant, but she couldn't shake the memory of the young officer she once mocked, teasing him about his quietness, calling him the ghost who can't get a date. She never apologized that he never asked her to. Now, the ghost stood before her, and she couldn't read him anymore. The briefing room fell silent as he studied the holographic map. "We have 8 hours, Lena said. Fastest route is extraction through the Delta Corridor. High risk. No margin for error." He frowned. "You'll lose your rear security." "I'm aware. You're risking your entire team." "I said I'm aware," she snapped. He didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You haven't changed, Lena." She stiffened. She hadn't heard her first name spoken in that tone in years. Her heart betrayed her. One rapid, unsteady beat. "You don't get to know whether I've changed," she murmured. He looked at her then. Really looked at her, and for a tiny moment, the room felt years younger, but the moment broke when he said quietly, "This mission will destroy you if you go in blind." "Are you suggesting you know more than I do?" she challenged. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't posture. He held out a USB drive. "Because I already went in once." Her stomach dropped. "You what?" His eyes were cold steel. "I led the last team that tried to infiltrate that compound. Everyone froze, and I'm the only one who made it out alive." The next hours blurred into training drills, strategy arguments, and a tug-of-war between their past and present. Lena hated that he was right. She hated needing him, and she especially hated how easily he slid back into leadership, quiet, intuitive, guiding her team without ever undermining her. He seemed to know where danger hid before it appeared, like he'd been shaped by something darker, something he never spoke of, and though she pretended not to watch him, she did, when he paused too long at old combat footage, when his hand trembled slightly after a silent moment. When the ribbon from his daughter caught the breeze and he touched it. Like it was armor, for the first time in years, Lena Rourke felt something crack inside her armor. Then, while reviewing the drone feeds together late that night, she whispered, "Why did you leave the SEALs without a word?" His eyes didn't leave the screen, "Because my daughter needed a father more than the Navy needed a ghost." She swallowed hard. "And why come back now?" Finally, he looked at her. "Because you asked for me." She froze, time stopped, her lungs forgot to pull in air. Because she hadn't asked for him, she had requested the best infiltrator alive, Iron Ghost, but the man standing before her, he wasn't the ghost she mocked. That he was the father who carried his daughter's ribbon into war, and he was the one person she once hurt without ever meaning to. That night, for the first time in her career, Admiral Lena Rourke doubted whether she was strong enough for what came next, because the ghost she once laughed at was the man she now needed to survive. Dawn bled across the sky as the team prepared for insertion. The air felt heavy, thick with unspoken fears. Lena checked her weapon, then her gear, then her men, avoiding Iron Ghost's gaze each time that he didn't push. Didn't ask. That he just watched her with calm, unreadable patience. Before boarding the helo, she muttered, "You'll stay on rear security." He shook his head. "No, excuse me. You lead from the front. I cover the front. That's how we keep them alive." She bristled. "You're not in command." "Neither are you," he said quietly. "Fear is." Her breath caught, her defenses flared, but she couldn't argue, because her hands were shaking. That he stepped closer, close enough that only she could hear him. "You freeze when you think about losing people. I've seen it before." She swallowed, anger and fear tangled together. "That was years ago." "Then prove it," he said gently. Something in her finally snapped. "Why do you care?" she whispered, and his answer cracked her open. "Because you're the only one who never gave up on me before I even knew how to fight for myself." She stared at him, searching for the lie, the trap, the manipulation. There was none. He had always been honest, quiet, steady, the kind of man she once dismissed as weak because he wasn't loud about his strength. She exhaled slowly. "Then let's finish this." The insertion was chaos. Gunfire erupted before their boots touched the ground, dirt exploded around them, radio signals jammed, their path to the compound was blocked. The team faltered, only for a second, but Iron Ghost was already moving. "Rourke. Left flank." His voice cut through the air like a lifeline. She obeyed instinctively, her movements aligning with his in a rhythm they had forgotten but their bodies remembered. They fought back to back. That he shielded her from a sniper round. She dragged him out of a blast radius he didn't see. Their team held formation because the two of them held each other upright, but the mission turned when Lena spotted movement on the rooftop. A child, small, terrified, crying. A little girl, maybe 6. Lena froze, her heart slammed to a stop, her breath vanished. She couldn't move, not when she saw those small hands trembling, not when she remembered the family she once lost during a civilian extraction years ago, a memory she buried so deep she refused to let it surface. Iron Ghost saw her freeze, and something in his face changed, not anger, not disappointment, recognition. He sprinted toward her, slid behind cover, grabbed her shoulders. "Lena. Look at me." She did. His voice dropped, steady, grounded, gentle. "You are not losing anyone today. Do you hear me? Not this child. Not your team. Not me." Her vision blurred, but she nodded. He squeezed her shoulder once, firm and reassuring. "Follow my lead." Together they advanced. He neutralized the rooftop threat. She reached the little girl, scooping her into her arms. The child clung to her, sobbing into Lena's vest, and for the first time in years, Lena didn't freeze. She moved, she fought, she protected, she lived. Extraction was brutal but successful. Every team member survived, every civilian was saved. When the bird lifted into the sky, Lena sat across from Iron Ghost, sweat-soaked, bruised, exhausted beyond reason. He looked at her with a quiet, proud smile. "You didn't freeze," he said softly. She shook her head. No. Not this time. He reached into his pocket and held out something small, pink, and familiar, the ribbon, his daughter's ribbon. You dropped this, he said. She blinked. Keep it. It brought you home. He studied her for a long moment, then he tied the ribbon gently around her wrist. For luck, he murmured. The weight of it was nothing, the meaning of it was everything. She whispered, almost afraid of the truth in her own voice. Will you leave again? He didn't look away. Didn't hide. Didn't pretend. That depends, he said quietly. Do you still think I'm a ghost who can't get a date? She laughed, a small, startled sound that she hadn't let herself make in years. No, she said, heart pounding. I think you're the man who made an Admiral freeze. And come back stronger, he added. She nodded. Stronger, because you were here. He leaned back, finally allowing himself to breathe. Then maybe, he said softly, it's time I stopped disappearing. Her fingers brushed the ribbon on her wrist. Good, she whispered, because I'm done letting you. The helicopter soared toward the horizon. Two warriors, two broken hearts, two people who had waited years to stop running, and for the first time, neither looked away.